Jay. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar.
Okay, we already did the weather, didn't we, Stan?
Yeah, we did.
Yes, Jay, Stone Gold, Gary Fife, Joe, Jeff Goodos.
Darren, DeLaune, Jeff Goodos.
Welcome to Mvskoke Radio again. You know, it is the Halloween season, and of course, TV is filled with all kinds of ghost stories and monsters and this kind of stuff. And so we thought we would take a show here and kind of look at some of the stories that have been part of Mvskoke Creek Nation tradition. We have a long history of this sort of thing. And we're inviting our listeners to give us a call and share your stories if you've had an experience that you can't quite explain, something that you think happened to you that came from other influences and other spheres. And we're interested in what you have to say today. So if you want to share a story, I mean, we've got some things that we're going to be talking about that have just happened in the last couple of weeks and just spitting distance from this studio, actually. Darren, what do you think? You got anything there?
For me personally?
Yeah.
Well, honestly, for the month of October, I've been going through what I call my horror movie challenge. It's my 5th year doing it. I watch a horror movie a night for the month of October, and I got some goofy rules to go with it, but due to the fact that like these last 2 movies, I've been up for over 2 days because because of these 2. So I'm hoping after the movie tonight, some sleep will be on the count sheet. So.
Also joining us in the studio today is Rebecca Barnett, who is a language instructor with the Mvskoke Creek Nation Language Department, and she's brought in one of her assistants there in that department, Leon Martin. So welcome to the both of you. We want to thank you for coming down and talking about some of this particular subject.
Well, thank you for having us, Gary. We're just, Scary Story has always been our tradition, but Halloween, it just seems to come out. That's when people kind of talk about the scary stories. So,
is it something about this time of year, do you think, that brings out this kind of energy where people have this experience, or does it happen all the time and we just don't think about it until Halloween?
I think it only comes out during Halloween, and people starts talking about it. But I think it's like a frequent occurrence in the Creek families and Creek homes, So, yeah, but it usually comes out during Halloween just because, I guess, due to what comes along with Halloween, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, I've spoken with a lot of our folks who have had these kinds of experiences, and one of them was actually about spitting distance from this studio just across in the council house. And other folks have seen things that they couldn't explain or noises, lights coming on, things like that. I've actually had that happen to me. And we'll just start right there. With my wife and I were sitting at home one evening, and very bright light in our dining room. We have and it's got one of these pull chains on it with a fan and this kind of stuff. And as we're sitting there watching TV, all of a sudden, this light came on, all by itself. And I couldn't figure out, well, is it, did we pull on that chain and it just didn't activate at the time? Did it get caught on something and didn't release, and all of a sudden the light came on and this kind of thing? And my wife, Ramona, I think is a lot more sensitive to this kind of stuff. Said, yeah, it's your dad checking up on us. And he had passed away, a year or so before that. And yeah, that sounds about like him. He would come back and let us know he was still kind of watching around. I don't know. What do you think? Either Darren, Rebecca, Leon, any credence to that? What are your thoughts when you hear something like that?
My thoughts, personally, I mean, I'm gonna have to go with what Ramona said. It sounds like your dad was checking on you and probably making sure you're still walking the straight line, more or less. I'm surprised you probably did get slapped upside the head or something like that. You know, I mean, because we've heard they can do that too. I mean, if they think you're out of line, the spirits, anyways, they always then just hit you upside the head, or you just feel something just out of throw you out of whack.
Mm. Oh, yeah. When I looked at my wife, we just sort of both looked at each other in shock, and like, where did that come from? You know? And she made that comment, and I thought, yeah, that makes sense. And
Yeah, some things are unexplainable, I know, but they do say that even when like a newborn baby's born, the spirits that's left before will come back and visit the baby, and so they always told us to expect things like that. So yeah, I can relate to that, being somebody checking up on you.
yeah, I think she probably had heard noise or something like that. Not that our home is haunted or anything like that from my father, but yeah, he seemed like he was still a presence around there. Leon, we haven't said anything to you. Have you had any experiences like that, something like that, or does this sound credible to you?
I mean, it does. I mean, I just haven't had any experiences like that, though.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell me, what kind of things have you run across in your life?
Well, there was one with there was a downed tree that was picked back up unexpectedly.
Oh, God.
This one was also just down my road, but a storm came through, and me and my brother, we was going down the road, and we seen this tree that fell over in the middle of the road. It was a big old oak tree, I mean, pretty good size. And then we was walking over it, and was going down towards the corner, and then decided it was too far, so it was time for us to turn back and go back to the house. Well, when we decided to go back where that same tree fell down, it was picked back up and put in the same spot where it originally was. And I thought that was weird because, being that close, you couldn't hear a chainsaw or, heavy machinery or anything to even move it. And then to be able to see it standing back where it originally was, that was something.
Now, was this tree like back as it had originally grown? I mean, like it was healed up or, this kind of...
It was just a crack. That was it. I mean, it was just back in its original spot. And like I said, there was nobody around. It was just me and my brother. And then.
So there was nothing around the area that made it look disturbed. Like if a tree's going to fall down, it's going to make a, pretty much like an indentation or anything like that. Yes, but there's nothing like that around.
There was nothing around.
Wow. I'm going to avoid that road from now on. Let's just be on the safe side. I mean, you don't want that tree falling on me and then, be put back in its original place. And that's the cause of death.
You'd have one heck of an explanation to give to your insurance company there. How did you have it? Well, a ghost tree smashed my truck.
Yeah, and then it committed to an asylum the next day. Yeah.
Guess what? The ghost insurance company will be paying for it. Now, Becky, does this kind of thing have a long history with our people? I should imagine it would.
Yes, it does. It's got a long history. We've heard stories way back, and those were one of the things that's been told to us as we was growing up. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's part of our lives. It's who we are, the spiritual world. Mm-hmm. And it's just been part of our lives. So it's scary. I mean, I've been scared, knowing that, but it's part of our oral traditions.
Right. That's what we hope to make of Mvskoke Radio.
Yeah.
It's part of our oral tradition. While we're talking about that, we'd like to invite our listeners to give us a call. 918-756-3646. If you have a story about something you couldn't quite explain or something you knew what it was, something that you care to share, please give us a call and do that. And, please have some respect for some confidentiality in case someone's name is involved. We'd probably rather not have that. Call them Jane or Joe or something like that. But anyway, if you've got something to share, we'd love to hear from you, so give us a call. Now, we're sitting here looking at the council house, and from what I understand from some of the people who've been around it and worked with its association to keep it open and things like that, there have been a number of experiences right there of something they couldn't explain, coming downstairs or making the noise of someone walking. And just last week, one of our media people was inside shooting some photos. And on a number of these photos, there are bright white spots there. And well, first of all, we can't explain it. It was not a reflection. It wasn't her flash. It wasn't like the daylight breaking through the windows or anything. These are, round circular spots in several places. And we couldn't figure it out, and we didn't want to,
It was one of those photos that you
Yeah.
you see, but I mean, you don't want to look at it again, but pretty much you're drawn to it. I mean, I don't know how many times I try to walk away, but then I come back maybe like a couple minutes later to take a look at it, because you're hoping that it's fake.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not, it wasn't. It was pretty authentic and pretty scary if you think about it. So.
Yeah, you got all this energy like that. Becky, let me ask you if you might share a story or something for the...
Yeah, I can. One night, we was at a ceremonial ground. They were having a green corn ceremony, and me and my two friends was down there. We was all, and I mean, there was a lot of people there, and it was impossible hardly to get out, but this girl wanted to go get her shells. And it was across town in Hannah. Well, I'm from Hannah, so we went across town. And there's a hill there's a hill there that everybody's talked about, saying it's scary. Like if you cross it by yourself, somebody will get in a car with you, which it has happened to some people. And they say, but it was like a place where kids went to party. They would sit there and everything and visit and fool around and party there. And some people, even the older people said that was there, said they would hear somebody walking down the hill in like high heels or something.
Oh.
They've heard that before. Well, we've heard these stories all our lives growing up. Well, that night, I don't know what we was doing. We was going across that hill, and this girl wanted to stop, so we did. And why we shut off the motor is beyond me. Shut it off. The girl we was all three in the front. Of course, we were young, and I was driving, and this girl had her back toward the passenger door window. And we was sitting there. She started telling us the story. The one in the middle was telling us the story, so we was all sitting there listening to her. Something knocked on our window, on our windshield, hard enough to me to crack it.
Oh, God.
And I mean, this girl in the middle told the girl that was sitting next to her, "Don't do that, it's scary up here." We turned around and looked at her, and she was sitting there like, I didn't do this, But I tried to start my car, and it wouldn't start.
Oh, gee.
And then when I did finally get it started, we went down that hill. There's hills on both sides. We was probably fishtailing down that hill. We never went back because we were too afraid to go back across. But that actually, something knocked on our window like 3 or 4 times, hard enough. Like somebody was standing there just knocking on it like, open your window or something, And that was one experience that I thought I was going to actually have a heart attack.
Oh, God.
Trying to start my car, too, and there's another heart attack.
Yeah. What is it about this sort of experience that automatically takes car engines off the line? I don't know. Every horror movie you ever see, I think the car engine dies.
Yeah.
The monster is attacking, and you can't start the darn thing.
Mine, it sounded like, it would just start right off, but it just like the starter was dragging. It made this like sound like the badger was going down, but it did finally catch.
Oh, gosh.
I think honestly, I mean, if we're gonna go to that, I mean, I really think these spirits do have a sense of humor. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, some might want to scare you, but then some just want to play with you. And I mean, and I think let's just make sure. I mean, like for instance, your situation, Becky. Let's just make sure her car don't start for a little bit. Let's just make her sweat it out just a little bit more, and then then we'll start it up.
Well, I don't know. We were sweating, but we sure was screaming. I mean, one of us was screaming. I don't know. It's probably scared that thing too.
Gosh, it's hard. If any of our listeners have stories that they'd kind of care to share with us, give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. 756-3646 here at 1240 The Brew in beautiful downtown Okmulgee. Be part of our show today. We're pretty loose and kind of taking it easy here. Oh gosh, you know this sense of humor thing. I think has popped up in a lot of different incidents around the nation and the world and things like that. But it seems like these energies like to participate in things that are humorous also. I think my father told me once he had an experience where he was sitting around, watching TV, and my younger sister had passed away a couple of years ago, and one of her favorite shows was Sanford and Son, with Red Fox and, about the junk man, and he said that show came on and they just had that opening sequence, and I think Fox did one of his fake heart attack. Here I come, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth.
I'm on the way.
Yeah.
And he said he swears he heard my sister laugh, because that was one of her favorite shows. We've got a caller on the line here. Hello, how are you there?
Hello.
Hi. What's your name?
George Kozer.
George. Hi, George. Gary Fife here. I
got a story. A long time ago, my father, he's long deceased now, but when he was a young man, there was a lady that was she used to go to the houses and sit up with people who were dying. This lady was dying. She was making a low sound, kind of like a mumbling sound inside the house, and all of the men were outside.
Okay, George, your phone is breaking up. Can you repeat that for me?
Okay, there was an old lady was dying in the house, and back in the olden days, the old timers and the young men would go outside on the fire, would sit around to see what if she was going to live. But anyway, there was a chicken came out and started going around in a circle, and that was making the same sound as that woman in the house, making a low noise. And pretty soon, my dad, he was like a young man. He told us old timers that he was going to get that chicken. He said, "No, leave it alone." But what it was and when that lady in the house died, that chicken disappeared. In our language, we call it loka. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Repeat that again.
Yeah, in our language, that spirit is called loka.
Loka.
Loka, yeah. So that's, but that lady, when she died, that chicken disappeared too. And that's, like I said, my father used to tell us stories like that.
Oh, boy. Okay, well, that's pretty amazing. Never run across any chickens like that, but I did run across a prairie chicken once.
Well, they can take forms of a chicken or a cat or even a dog. But that's what they call loka. It's a spirit.
Let me, George, while I've got you on the line here, do you see this as being part of a tribal tradition? Do we have a long history of this kind of interaction?
Sure. I grew up that way, hearing all oral traditions, from my grandparents and from my mother and father, aunts and uncles. So that's a part of who we are as Mvskoke people. We've been taught that. So, and also we'll pass it down to our kids. So they'll never forget who we are as Mvskoke people. we're in our Mvskoke.
Okay, well, George, thank you very much. We appreciate you sharing that. It brings back a couple of memories of my own there, where I run across a couple birds that I couldn't quite understand, and actually scared the pants off me a couple times. Okay.
He just took one of my favorite foods out of my diet now. And, I mean,
Oh, no more DeLaune.
yeah, thank you, George.
Let me call on our board up here. Stan.
Yes, sir.
Stan, you've got something you want to share with us?
Yeah, I didn't know if you'd want to hear from a Cherokee Irishman, but I've got a story too. And it's interesting because this one here I'm going to tell it happened in closer to Ryle, Oklahoma. And my oldest son had some friends over one night, and they were telling the story, and they were from, the Mvskoke Nation. And they were telling us a story about on 10th Street heading towards Ryle, how an elderly man had been struck by a vehicle out there and killed, I guess, many years ago. And they say if you drive down there sometimes at night and you believe you're going to see him, you'll see him.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. I had to.
No, you just
I
gotta
had to go.
You just gotta
Had
go.
to go. Gotta go. You guys got to drive, though. And so my oldest son, he's driving his pickup truck, and we're all piled up in it. And we drive, and we keep driving, and we get almost all the way down there to Ryle, and there's nothing, but it's pitch black out. And we finally get down there at about where I'm used to go hunting. I said, Carrie, we're not seeing anything. Let's go ahead and turn around and head on back to Henrietta. And I'm not kidding you. He pulled in nose first to an entrance on somebody's property, and he backed out to head back towards Henrietta. And as soon as he backed out and his headlights come around, he was standing right there by the road. Not kidding you. And he waved at us. And my boy screamed, I screamed, we all screamed. And of course my kid punched it, and he roasted the tires and took off. And I kept going, no, we got to go back and talk to him. Carrie's like, I'm not going back. I'm not going back. And I don't know why it scared us. It shouldn't have, because he didn't like bum rush the truck or anything. He just waved at us, almost gentle, And I almost wish we had stopped because he was there. It wasn't an apparition or something. He was there. He was really there, right by the road. And we all,
Do y'all drive back by there anymore, or do y'all?
No, I haven't been down there since. I don't get back down there anymore, but I've thought about driving back down there again. Yeah, because Dave, my son's friend, who was from Mvskoke Nation, he said, if you believe, you'll see him.
Yeah, that's one conversation you probably did not want to have.
I just didn't expect it.
No, and
I felt flattered, though.
the image or the, I don't know what, apparition, ghost, whatever.
Yeah.
They always seem so real. I mean, flesh and blood kind of real sort of thing.
I thought it was a real guy just standing there,
Yeah.
but he came out of nowhere. I was like, how did we not see him when we drove by? How did we not see him?
What's he doing on this backwoods road in the
Yeah.
middle of the night?
He was in an old cream-colored shirt and a pair of jeans and a baseball cap, and I was like, he was real.
Ugh,
He was real. I know. That's a true story.
gosh.
I'm going to put one of our coworkers under the bus on this one because they scared me yesterday with that clown. So I'm going to get him back. Let's see. A couple years back, Daniel Roberts and I, for some stupid reason, we wanted to try and go ghost hunting. You see it on TV now. I mean, everybody's doing it. So, why not? Let's try it ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay, now, their ghost hunting and, and our ghost hunting, I'm pretty sure it's totally different. Ours will linger around. So, of course, Daniel had one place we were wanting to go, and near that place, of course, is a cemetery. So we had one. Matter of fact, we used one of our recorders that we had that we have at our offices, and we just hit record and just let it go. Then after a while, we listen to it. We hear a girl whistling. I'm not going to say a girl whistling. We hear whistling, and then we were playing that on the way back home. And then he wanted to try one more place. I guess there was some bridge out where his near his family's or wherever his family's from. And we just started walking on that bridge, and then we hear something. And then the thing about it is, I bet you it wasn't a ghost. It was probably like a raccoon or something like that. But midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, you're not going to think that. Then I remember Dago just took off running. I'm right behind him. And it is like one of those horror movies, like whenever you fumbling for your keys and stuff like that. And I remember hearing Daniel saying, he's going to turn on the headlights. There's going to be a big dark figure right in front of us. We're going to have to run over him. I don't know if Darren's car can do it. I don't know if I can do it. He goes, I'm going to have to push Darren down so I can get away. So, I mean, it was just like a 5-minute tirade of what Daniel was saying. And honestly, I wish I could have recorded him saying that, because, I mean, I don't know if he was like near tears or something like that, but I just remember he wouldn't look up for a while until we were way out of that area. And I know it was around the Omongi Lake area, or Dripping Springs, I'm sorry. But, I mean, even though it was scary, it was very comical. And the one thing I do remember was whenever we come back, we finally get back to our home and stuff, I dropped him off, and I get back home and, just get a shower, get ready for bed. Well, I noticed that my eyes were right beside my eyes were burning, and I looked in the mirror and there were cuts all over my eyes right there on the sides. So that was, I think that was kind of a sign, don't do this again. Leave it alone. And
those weren't self-inflicted, brother.
No, not unless Daniel was scratching away and I didn't know about it. But I mean, that's the only thing I could think of. But no, those weren't self-inflicted, I promise.
Okay, Daniel, put that one on your Facebook.
Yes, Daniel, gonna come at me with a clown. I'm telling everybody about that story.
Now, a lot of the stories that we've become aware of are in fairly contemporary times. There's a history of these sorts of things, but we'd hear stories about driving from, let's say, Glenpool to Sapulpa. There, my dad said, remember this road here? He says, when me and some friends of mine drove down it, when we were younger men, and they were talking about a spirit called Nogizoma, and said that it's down there. So if you go down there late at night, you're going to find him, and he's going to get you. So you don't ever want to go down that road. I said, yep, that's no problem. I can take that one off my list and my atlas real quick.
And as far as we know, you're the only one that knows that road, so we're going to just keep it that way, too.
Rebecca, have you ever heard that name before? I mean,
yes, I have, and I really don't know. There wasn't no real explanation what it was, but I've heard that. I've heard of those things, and they say, not to be around it, or be where it's at, make you sick, or,
Yeah.
But yeah, that reminds me a story he was telling. Way back, well, of course, my grandma, she was a young woman at that time, and she lived on the east side of town, and by herself. She lived by herself, and she had my uncle and three little boys. She had a pair of twins, and they would live there, and back in those days, there used to be a train that came through town, and the tracks are still there now, but it's not, it's shut down a long time ago. Well, back then there was no telephones or anything, but she said earlier that day they had come by and said that they had taken her aunt to Arkansas Hospital, and she was in grave condition, And behind their house was the family cemetery, and some of her kids were there, and of course the family was there. So she said she was, and back then they didn't have electricity. It was oil lamps and whatever, And she said she got through feeding the kids and everything, and the oldest, which was my uncle, he died back in the 90s, but he told me this story too, he was telling me this story. And he stayed up with her and put the twins to bed and everything, and said they heard people crying. And said, and it was from the cemetery. They heard the cemetery crying, and said, and he was young, so he said he wasn't really afraid of it. It was just something that he was hearing. But said my grandma told him, he said, we're going to hear bad news here pretty soon. And he said soon they heard a train coming in, because they lived like, kind of close to it, but, they could hear it coming when they were bringing her body in. And that's where she was going to be buried. So that cemetery was actually mourning. And that was me. No car or whatever. But, those graves are still out there. And I always wondered, there's been few people that live out there, if they ever heard from, that cemetery or anything. I never did really ask, but there's a couple of people that lives out there now that I'd like to ask, but they said that cemetery said they heard that whole cemetery just crying.
It seemed like those places have this incredible amount of energy.
Yeah.
Positive or negative, either way you want to look at it. But it's a central point for a focus for this sort of thing. And when I was working on the national news service, we'd hear from people, and then sometimes get the chance to go out and visit different places around the country and things like that. And I remember I was working a story in Montana on the Little Bighorn battlefield. And, you've got to think, a site like that has got to have all this energy. I was standing there by myself, and kind of like today, it was overcast and cloudy and cold wind, and really, a very lonely place at the time. And I'm standing on Last Stand Hill, where Custer and the last of his men were taken out by the Plains Indians tribal warriors. And the thought, just flashed through my mind. I'm like, God, what a lonely place to die, no matter which side you were on. And as I did that, I stooped down to get my recording equipment. And standing right behind me was this prairie chicken, not more than about 10 feet away, just standing there looking at me. And he was on, I guess it was, if I recall correctly, kind of an asphalt walkway. So, there wasn't too much dust or anything, but there was some dirt and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I thought, where'd you come from? You weren't there just a second ago. And I thought, no, mine. Then I glanced down to grab my gear and then looked back up and he was gone. And I looked there where it was standing, and there was some dust and dirt there, but there were no prints. I thought, no, even a chicken, which doesn't weigh much, a prairie chicken's got to leave footprints behind, this kind of stuff, but he was gone. And I looked back up, across the battlefield, and it was saying, okay, now you know, we're still here, kind of the feeling as I got. And I walked down the hill and talked to the park superintendent and asked him, does this sort of thing happen very often? He said, a whole lot more than you would believe, because of the battle and people dying and some very, very powerful energy. And he said, well, there's a graveyard down here by your facility here. I presume some of the soldiers or somebody else has been buried there. He says, oh yeah. And he said, there have been some of our staff people told me that during the evenings and at night, they had seen the ghost of Libby Custer, George Custer's wife, walking around looking for her husband. I said, okay, well, I'll leave that one alone, and I'll just, take what I got and get the heck out of here. But, it's just like these graveyards have such energies, and it's such a focal point. Ali, and I see you nodding there. You got anything to say there? Something you want to chip in there?
Yeah, I'd have another story, which was, it's close by to the previous one I told. Mm. This one, it was a Stahecti boy. He was late at night driving. He's going by Stajati Church, Stajati Cemetery. Mm. And then he was going around a corner, and he heard a thump in the back of his truck. He's like, well, I guess thought he'd just go down to the stop sign. And then he said whenever he hit his brake lights, he looked in the side mirror and seen a Stajati, and all geared out and had his tomahawk, and he said that's what hit the side of his truck. So he got scared, went down to the stop sign, got out, looked on the side of his truck, and sure enough, his truck had been damaged from a tomahawk slash.
Gosh.
And then from that point forward, he said he never went back down that road again. And this one was actually catty cornered from where that tree fell.
Oh boy.
And so there's probably some more stories around that way, but those are the two that I remember like nothing.
Yeah, that sounds like a stretch of road you want to stay off of.
Yeah, and I just live right around that corner too.
Oh boy! Once again, we'd like to invite our listeners to join us here in the program. 918-756-3646. If you've got a story you want to share, like even a legend or a tale or something like that, or something that you've encountered that you couldn't quite explain, well, we'd be interested in hearing what you got to say. It's kind of unusual to hear and see this thing usually this day and age, but we've heard here in Okmulgee there have been a couple things that couldn't be explained. I understand one of the food stores down not too far away from us here, some of the employees had seen things in the storerooms back there they couldn't explain. Stan, did you ever hear any of that?
Yeah, I don't know how much truth is behind it, but I understood at the grocery store here downtown, I guess many years ago, a woman was murdered.
Oh.
And they say, some of the older employees there say, she's not mean, she just likes to let you know she's there. They said one night as they were leaving, they had already set the alarm, and all the employees were walking in the front of the store, and every item off the top of the shelves on one of those aisles come right off. Come right off. Every item on the top of the shelf. Not every item on all the shelves, just the top shelf. And they came down and they said time and time again, the cooler doors have all opened up by themselves. The lights will be bouncing and going crazy. And they say, she's not mean. She's just letting you know she's there. That's what they told me. I used to be the Budweiser guy there, and they shared those stories with me.
Well, I stopped by there once and to see if I might be able to talk to someone down there, and they wouldn't have it. And I said, no.
No, too bad.
No. I will say that people have talked about seeing things, but that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, well, I respect that and let it go to you. And another thing I ran across here was picking up a sandwich at one of the places here in town.
Yeah.
And the ladies behind the counter, the sandwich makers, were talking. Said, "Well, I don't recall her exact words, but the gist of the thing was, well, he did it again." And I said, "Well, Gary, shut up and listen. Let's hear what you've got to say." But my ears are growing like radar screens, and I'm thinking, God, please say something else. And she said, yeah, that stuff we had laid out for the meats for sandwiches and things like that. We got it ready to go out on the counter, and I turned around and walked out, and when I came back just a few seconds later, it was on the floor.
Wow.
I said, okay, maybe I won't order that kind of sandwich in the future.
Or have you been back to that place?
Actually, truthfully, no. No, you can find something else, somewhere else. But it's that close.
Yeah.
That we can run across stuff like that.
Well, Gary, and I'm sorry to interrupt, guys. Don't let me interrupt you, but I don't know if you've ever been to the Quarter, French Quarter in New Orleans, but they have that great big, beautiful old St. Louis Cathedral that in Jackson Square. We spent a week down there, and we would go down there every night because the most interesting thing would happen. They would close the wrought iron gates around that square, so nobody could get in and out. And when they closed those gates, dozens, maybe hundreds of cats, and nobody knows where they come from, would enter the square, and they'd all lay around. And the locals say those are the spirits of the folks who died in that square, because back in the day, the duels took place out back of the cathedral, and the hangings took place out front, and those cats are the spirits of the people that died here. And nobody knew where the cats came from. None of them had collars on. Nothing.
Yeah, I've seen that square. Do we have another caller?
We do.
Okay, caller, are you there?
Yes,
Hi.
I am.
You got a story to share with us?
I have a story, but not as scary as y'all's stories have been.
Hey, that's just fine with me. We're going to be a little nervous when we leave here anyway, but go ahead, please.
My name is Georgianne, and one evening I worked at the Creek Nation Community Hospital, and I worked the 11 to 7 shift, so that was midnight shift. And during that time, the winds, they were blowing, but not as hard to open the doors, the emergency doors. Anyway, there was a time the wind blew and opened the door, and there's 2 sets of doors you come into. And this, the second doors, when it opened that one, I felt a cold air come around me. And I sat there, and I could feel hands.
Oh, gosh.
And then, it left, and my mom has always said, whatever happens, don't be afraid. And, I sat there, I was trying to think what this could be. But, a couple of days later, I found out it was one of my relatives that had passed away, and that she was visiting me for the last time.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, but, it's, sometimes, it's warnings too, or be aware, or, like you said, bad news is coming.
Preparing you.
Yeah, preparing, yeah. And also, I'm very fortunate. I haven't had the experience as y'all have.
Well, feel good. You can feel good about that.
Yeah, very good. And with with me and my 2 kids, my son would hear someone call his name, Darren, and then or my daughter would have a dream about this an individual, and then the next morning we found out that they passed away, and the only thing I would get is phone calls.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just some of these are just like I said, warnings or news that you're going to hear.
Let me ask you this: when you felt that cold wind wrap itself around you, what went through your mind?
At first, I said, okay, because for some odd reason, I knew that wind didn't go anywhere else. It just came around, and I just had to settle myself down. Like I said, my mom had taught us not to be afraid, and I had to get into that mindset there.
Well, it was a good place to be. I think it kind of one, preserved your sanity, but it kind of let you know that what to expect. Then, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay. Well, anything happened to you since then?
No, sir. It's just that there's been warnings or news that has come around.
Yeah.
Just like you said, preparing me for bad news coming about.
Yeah, kind of marshal your strength there. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you giving us a buzz there and sharing this story. I'm sure there are a lot of other people who've kind of been through the same thing.
Yeah. So, okay. Thank you.
But
love you, Mom.
Becky, does that sound familiar? I mean, have you
Yeah.
heard this kind of thing?
Like they say, like if there's going to be something happen in your family or something, there's warnings, that the spiritual world brings. I know when the uncle that told the story to me that I was talking about earlier, he right before his death, me and my husband was sitting in the living room, and we had put a plastic cup in the middle of our our dinner table. It flew off and hit the floor. And, of course, we've been told stories that this is a sign.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my husband, oh my gosh, something's going to happen. And, and he said, how did that fly off the table? It just, there was no way. It just flew off and hit and it made a loud noise, So, and about 2 days later, he passed away unexpectedly, So, yeah, they give us those signs, and seem like they know themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it could be their spirits maybe, letting us know these things.
Let me toss this question out for anybody. Do you think you really have to believe in these kinds of powers for these sorts of things to happen? I know there are people who say, no, it was the wind or whatever else, but that's fine. But I personally had never, been an advocate or anything either way. It's just like, okay, well, things happen, they happen. But I don't know. Does anyone have a thought there? Do you really have to I guess, believe in these things for them to happen to you?
My wife was a big skeptic. Her sister died in a terrible car crash, and my wife is a pagan. She believes in some kind of God. She's just not sure what kind of God is up there, but she believes in Mother Earth, and she believes.
Sure.
So when her sister died, that was absolutely devastating. It wasn't a month after her sister died, she too was in a terrible car wreck, and to this day, she's 39 years old, she swears by it. She says, right before that accident happened, my sister was in the back seat of my car. I saw her. She was with me. And she said, I think she's the reason why I survived. I think she's the reason. She was there with me, protecting me.
Mm-hmm.
Because as bad as the car wreck was, and her car was totaled, I've seen the pictures. It was before we got married. I don't see how she walked away from that with the minor injuries she had. She didn't even break one bone. But she swears by it. She had to spend the night in the hospital. They wanted to check her for internal, but she was okay. And she said, I swear my sister was in the car with me.
Yeah. What's the phrase? Somebody's looking out for you?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you all think? Where does the belief fit into this thing? Leon, you got any thought there? Or you want to think about it for a second?
Yeah, I'll think about it.
All right. Darren, Becky, where does it fit in? You have to believe in this sort of thing.
Well, I think that you grow up with it, you being told those stories, you grow up with it, but you actually have to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just like me and my friends being on that road, we heard of that, stories, and people actually heard things on the road while they were up there, but when we got there and something did happen, it wasn't stories anymore. It was real.
Yikes.
So I don't know if belief, I think it's you tell them until you experience something yourself, then you start believing in them.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can hear anything and it's just out there. But then when you experience it, and I think everybody, not just Creeks, but I think it's everybody had some kind of experience with supernatural or whatever, you want to call it, so.
Just have something simply unexplained.
Yes.
And there may be, something there, but that will explain it, but at the moment you don't.
There's nothing. There's no explanation for it.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of things in this creation that unexplained.
And it's probably best to stay that way too. Because some people don't. They'll probably want the explanation, but then some people just don't want to hear that explanation whatsoever. So, and a lot of them, whenever they have to experience for themselves, they'll try to do their best to block it out or suppress that memory. I know a lot of people who will just try to forget that or just make it out like it never happened. Whatever occurrence happened to them.
Yeah, it's something that's beyond our immediate grasp. We got another caller here. Hello, caller. Are you with us?
Still here.
Hi. What you got to share?
This is retired Air Force Sergeant Jackie Todd.
Hello.
I live out northeast of Okmulgee.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for calling.
Are you picking me up?
Yes.
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah, go ahead. What have you got to share with us?
Back, before the tornado hit Morris, about 2 weeks before it hit Morris, I was in a VA hospital at Mvskoke, and one night my wife come in and woke me up, and as I looked up, there was a spiritual there was a circle with 3 half-moon designs coming out of it, and it was spinning real slow between me and her. And I said, I see. I thought she was looking down at the same thing, but I found out later she talked to me for about 5 minutes, and all the time she was there, this thing was in between us spinning. And but I talked to her later, and she said she never did see it. But about, I think it was maybe 2 weeks later, it was when that tornado hit Morris, and it was also when it came across our land. It tore up a bunch of trees on our place back east of the airport. And but after, I was also sent down to Waco, Texas at that same time, and I was down there when that tornado hit. And the night the tornado hit Morris, I was dreaming that I was in my front yard, and a tornado came right down almost to my head, and then it stopped. And then I called my wife the next day, and she said a tornado hit Morris. And so I thought I'd let you know there is spiritual beings out there.
Do you feel like you were being warned?
I'm not sure. It's the first time I ever heard of any kind of a spiritual like that. But it looked like it was made out of something like static electricity.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't it wasn't a white spirit or anything. It was just it looked in all through it looked something like static electricity.
Yeah.
And it had 3 half-moon designs coming out of the top of it, and they was all spaced. The 3 was spaced even.
Well, that sounds like there was some structure there. There was something behind this energy.
Yeah, there's some because I've seen it for at least 5 minutes. Because my wife said she had seen it, or she didn't see it, but she was looking down, and I thought she was looking at it, but she said she never did see anything.
Oh my gosh, did it scare you or what?
No, at the time I was I guess went into a spiritual shock or something, because they put me in a hospital at Waco, Texas. I was in there for, I guess, close to a month.
Oh gosh.
But anyway, I thought maybe I'd let you know. Okay,
yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for giving us a call. We appreciate that.
Okay, all right.
Hope everything works out for you. You too.
Okay.
Bless you.
Bye.
Oh boy, this has been an interesting show here today.
Yeah.
A real change of pace for Mvskoke Radio, but this is the kind of thing that's out here. Part of our Mvskoke tradition and people and our surrounding community and our neighbors here. And as I say, just spitting distance across the street from this particular studio. Any real quick final thoughts, folks, or do we have another call real quick? Can we squeeze one in, do you think? Caller, are you with us? Hello? Hello, caller, are you with us? No, I guess not. Maybe it was somebody else we didn't know about. Calling from a different area code.
That don't help, Gary.
No, Gary, just shut up.
Yeah.
Let's wrap this up and get on to the announcements. Well, first of all, thank you, Becky and Leon, for coming in and sharing. This is kind of nice for us to let down our hair a little bit and talk about some.
But for having us.
Okay, well, it's fun. I appreciate it. So we'll talk at you later on. All right. Well, Darren, why don't you and I get on to the announcements here? We've got a couple things happening here.
Sounds like a lot of things going on the way we're looking at that folder. First one's coming up is the 13th Annual Pink Party for Breast Cancer Awareness. It's happening today from 1 to 4 at the Mvskoke Creek Nation Dome within the Claude Cox Omniplex. The registration for that will begin at noon. If you if you need any more information on it, please call 918-756-4333, extension 281. And for the information booth, please contact Lindsley Harry at 918-224-9307.
Okay, for a nice, joyous event at the Creek Nation Council House, we've got a fiddle dance coming up on Friday the 30th. That's tomorrow, Friday. At 7 p.m. It's October and time to fiddle again. So you can get festive at the Council House in downtown Okmulgee. Dress in your Halloween costume, dance, eat, listen to scary stories, just like on Mvskoke Radio. Potluck event, so if you're interested, check it out. $100 cash prize for the best costume. That's Friday the 30th at 7 p.m.
Perfect. October is Pastor Clergy Appreciation Month. Want to say to Mado to all the pastors and clergy of our churches within the Mvskoke Creek Nation. Principal Chief George Tiger will be honoring all the pastors at a special event this Saturday, Halloween, October 31st, from 6 to 8 at the Dome in Okmulgee within the Claude Cox Omniplex. If you would like more information about it, please contact Junior Taylor at 918-652-5531.
We know that we haven't even had Halloween yet, much less Thanksgiving, but it's time to look ahead to helping people for Christmas time. It's the time of the year for the angel tree. That angel tree will be going up on November 2nd, and they're looking for you to pick one up and find some wonderful gifts for those who are less fortunate at the particular time. So that'll be at the Mvskoke Creek Nation Complex Community Services Building. So pick one up on November 2nd, and they're due back December 1st. Get a hold of Becky Baker, 918-732-7869.
We got a Vietnam Veterans Honor Powwow that's coming up. It'll be in Dallas, Texas, at the Dallas Veterans Medical Center at 4500 South Lancaster Road in Dallas. It'll be on November 7th. If you you'd like more information about that, please contact Jennifer Gamble at 405-227-3514.
Autism and Sensory Processing Training, Part 2. The training will cover sensory processing refresher from the first training, sensory activities, and brushing technique. So if you want to pick up some more information and helpful techniques to deal with autism, please give them a call. Let's see, where are we? 224-9307. That's on November 9th from 1 to 4 at the Tribal Mound Building.
All right, next one is Indian Fall Festival, November 14th, from 10 to 4 at the Mvskoke Dome, like within the Claude Cox Omniplex. There will be art, music, food, and sports, children's activities. So please come on out November 14th from 10 to 4.
Okay, if you think your fry bread is pretty good, here's a chance to find out in some competition and maybe win a $1,000 grand prize. So it's during the Indian Fall Festival. There's the fry bread cook-off. Doesn't that sound good, Darren?
Yes, it does. Getting very hungry right now.
I know. July. Saturday, November 14th, starting at 1 p.m. at the Claude Cox Omniplex here in Okmulgee. $1,000 grand prize. If you're interested, get a hold of those folks there. Give them a call at 918-752-8750. And each contestant must be an enrolled citizen of any federally recognized tribe. So it's got to be Indian fry bread there, huh? Mm-hmm. I'll be ready for it. Oh, okay, we're out of ammunition there. Darren, this show was pretty off the wall, kind of a change from our usual.
But very informative. I mean, the great thing about it is, the stories that you hear, we kept out a lot of locations and everything, but I'm pretty sure people around here know where our subject, know where they're talking about. Mm-hmm. Like I said, Mvskoke Creek Nation is full of history. And some of it, like I said, is just oral history, so it's passed on from generation to generation. So I think that's what makes it great about our tribe.
Yeah. Oh, and thank you to Stan here. We appreciate you jumping in and sharing.
Thank you. I'm honored to be on with y'all. I really am. I'm really honored. You know, my grandma was full-blood Cherokee Shawnee, and she was a real spiritual lady. And I wish I'd paid better attention when I was a kid growing up. You know what I mean? I really do, because I miss her. She was a strong woman.
Well, it's never too late to go back and relearn, connect with some of your relatives, check out your own clan, hog fry, stomp dance.
And stories. The stories.
And the stories, you bet.
All you got to do is cruise over to Tahlequah. They've got a really good gift shop there.
They tell me the story about how a tornado was plowing down on them, Washington County, and how she went outside with an axe and held it up.
Yep.
You've probably heard that story before. So I don't know if it's urban legend or true, but I love the story.
Yes.
I love the
It's an amazing
story.
story.
I got a version from my own mother. It wasn't an axe that she used, but she said the woman of the house has to take her iron and put it on the front porch facing the storm, and it would split the cloud.
Wow.
And I remember being a little kid just scared to death, what's going on? And she went out there and did that, and, they wouldn't let us go out and look, but, kids wanted to, but we said, no.
Yeah.
But whatever it was, it passed us by, and we were really, really happy to do that, and it made me feel better that she had something to offer like that. Okay, well, let's wrap it up for another edition of Mvskoke Radio. Mado Mabo Hedgets good.
Mado, have a great day, guys.
All right.